What's up guys, Edrone here. This is the new KINfpv Cipher HDZ frame. The frame that is exclusively designed to work with the new HD0 1-watt freestyle VTX. Stay tuned.
Okay, this is part 3 of the KINfpv Cipher HDZ build for HD0. In this video, we're going to be covering the Betaflight binding and also getting the HD0 all set up, flash with new firmware, and unlocked. First thing we're going to do is go to the HD0 website, go to support, down to the download section, go ahead and click on download, scroll down, and we're going to go ahead and locate the unlocked freestyle zip file. Go ahead and save that. You can go ahead and right click on the bin file, and we're going to go ahead and copy this. Now we're going to go to our micro SD card. We're going to go ahead and paste this on the root directory of your micro SD card. Go ahead and eject the micro SD card. Put the card in your VRX module. Once you have that in the VRX module, go ahead and connect your firmware flashing cable to the HD0 side port. Then we're going to go ahead and connect the other end to our goggles. And we're basically going to be using the goggles to flash the firmware to the HD0 VRX. Go ahead and power on your goggles only, just the goggles. It will go ahead and write the firmware very quickly to the HD0. Go ahead and repower. So you're going to go ahead and unplug your power. You go ahead and plug power back in, and you should get a screen that looks something like this for your scan. Now you are go ahead and unplug your firmware flashing cable and unplug the goggles. Now we're going to go ahead and get ready to power up the HD0 VTX so it can write the firmware. Have a fan blowing on it for cooling. We're going to go ahead and power it up. Without the firmware cable, you'll get 3 blue lights indicating that the VRX is unlocked. You must have your ham radio for this feature to use. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take the micro SD card back out of the VRX and put back into the computer. Now we're going to go ahead and flash the firmware to the HD0 VTX, the latest firmware. Well, we already got it unlocked. Now we can go ahead and flash the firmware. So click on this, and we're going to go ahead and extract all for the freestyle VTX here. Once you have that extracted, we're going to go ahead and copy the TX bin file. And we're going to save that file to the root directory of the micro SD card. I'm going to go ahead and eject. Go ahead and put the micro SD card back into the VRX. Connect your firmware flashing cable to the HD0 and your goggles. Go ahead and power on. Only power on the goggles. Now, once the firmware finishes flashing, you will get a successful, and go ahead and repower the VRX message. Just wait for it to completely get done flashing and writing, and now you're going to go ahead and repower the VRX. Unplug power, then you're going to go ahead and replug in power, and then you should get a scan screen that looks like this. Once you've got this screen, you're good to go ahead and unplug power from the VRX. Next, you can go ahead and pull out your micro SD card out of the VRX and put it back into the computer. Now we have to flash all the files for the VRX. So we're going to go ahead and copy all the files for the VRX module, and we're going to paste them onto the root directory of the micro SD card. Make sure you copy all the files. Okay, once you have them on there, go ahead and eject your micro SD card. We're going to put that back into the VRX module. And then we're going to go ahead and power on the VRX module by itself. Now, it takes a while for this particular firmware, about 10 minutes. So just be patient, let it run it the whole entire way, let it flash the firmware, and once you get a successful screen, then you'll be good to go. But just give it a minute, it takes a while. This has been sped up. Once you get this screen, go ahead and repower. So you're going to unplug power to the VRX. You're going to go ahead and plug that power back in. Go ahead and power up your HD0, and you should have video. Just make sure when you're on the bench you've got a fan blowing on it when you power it on. I have mine in low power mode. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and get our binding. Go ahead and power on your controller. I'm using the TBS Tango 2 Pro. We're going to go ahead and push the menu button. Once we push the menu button, we'll get into the crossfire menu. I'm going to go ahead and select the Tango. And then we're going to go ahead, come on down to the bind, push the scroll wheel, and put it into binding mode on the TX. I've got my brand new crossfire receiver in here. We're going to power it up for the first time. Once we power it up, the receiver should automatically go into binding mode. Okay, it's recognized the receiver. It says update receiver. Yes, we're going to click the jog wheel. Now wait for the update receiver. Don't unplug power during this process. I'm using an older firmware that has been working very well for me. Okay, so we go ahead and got the update receiver. Now we have a solid bind. We got green, we got our telemetry. We're going to go ahead and unplug power. We should lose telemetry. And then we're going to go ahead and plug it back in just to confirm that we got a good solid bind. We should have a green light on the receiver as well as on the Tango 2 Pro. And we are successfully bound. Okay, we're going to go ahead and plug into Betaflight micro USB. Once you're in Betaflight, go ahead and make sure that your USB port is being recognized as a COM port. Go ahead and connect. Once you're connected, go ahead and look at this information here for your target. Write that down. Go to your CLI tab here and type in dump all or diff all. Either one. Hit enter. Okay, you're going to go ahead and copy to clipboard. That's going to copy the whole setup for your quadcopter that it has in case something goes wrong. We're going to be flashing the firmware, the new Betaflight 4.3, release candidate 3. Okay, so we can go back into enable expert mode, go to the setup, and activate bootloader. Or you can plug in USB and push a button on your flight controller at the same time. Okay, once we are in DFU here at the COM port, we can go ahead and select update firmware. We're going to put show unstable releases, and you must have the new 10.8.0 or newer configurator for Betaflight to be able to flash this release candidate firmware. We're going to select the correct target that we got earlier, and we're going to go ahead and load the firmware for the newest release candidate of Betaflight 4.3.0. We're going to go ahead and load firmware, then we're going to flash the firmware, set to full chip erase. Okay, once it's done flashing, we're going to go ahead and click on the connect button. Once we click on connect, it's going to bring us to the Betaflight ask about applying custom defaults. You're going to say yes. If it doesn't connect, just go ahead and click on the connect button. Now it's going to tell you a warning that some things aren't set up yet. Next, you're going to move your quadcopter. Make sure it's moving the correct direction. Ours is not. We have some other things we need to do. But go ahead and reset the axis and find a nice flat surface and calibrate the accelerometer. We're going to go down the ports tab, make sure our receiver is set up on the correct UART. We have that turned on for UART 2. And for the shark bite, or for the HD0, we're going to use UART1 MSP. Turn that on, because we're going to be using the OSD. And then we're going to go ahead and select the, if you wanted to do the VTX Smart Audio, you would set it up here. However, I'm going to be using the HD0 menu, VTX menu. Okay, we're going to go to configuration, and we're going to go here to the gyro degree, and we're going to change that because of the way we have our flight controller on this particular build, because we are actually running the XT60 out the front side of the frame, so we rotated the boards. So once you have that set up correctly, which mine has set to be 0, we can go ahead and make sure we have our accelerometer turned on. I always turn on RX set and RX aux for in case for beeper. I've got telemetry turned on, air mode. Gonna go ahead and hit save and reboot. Pretty much done in the configuration tab. Gonna go to the presets tab here, and we're going to do the rates. So come right down here and select rates in the search bar. Click over here to make that go back away. Scroll all the way down, and I'm going to be using the UAV tech rates for cinematic whoop options. Cinematic HD smoothing, select that. I'm going to go ahead and select pick, and then it will go ahead and load those presets for you. Then you can go ahead and save. And now the rates have been applied. Go to the PID tuning tab. We're going to leave everything stock for the filters and PID tuning. The only thing I change on the rates is the endpoints. I go down to 600 on pitch and roll, and I leave yaw at 700. Okay, go to the receiver tab. We should see our colored lines moving once we are powered up, and we have the controller powered up with the receiver powered up. Make sure that's set to serial and crossfire, CRSF. Here's your channel mapping if you want to change which sticks move what lines on here. And then we have a little bit of deadband that we add just for a little bit of stick jitter. Okay, go to the modes tab. I'm going to go ahead and with your quadcopter powered on, you can go ahead and move this bar. Once you have your switches set up in your transmitter, you can go ahead and move that bar over top of the tick when the switch is in that correct position to where the tick is in reference. So once you have the yellow tick, push the switch to auto. It will auto detect whatever switch you want to select. So push auto, and then you're going to go ahead and push on the switch. We have our beeper set up, flip over after crash, arm, angle, horizon, and acro mode set up there. Okay, and I also am running reverse, props are reverse, so I have that selected. We're going to be running D-Shot 600 with bidirectional D-Shot turned on. Make sure you power up the quadcopter with the props off, and make sure you don't have any errors here. You should say 0 or very low numbers there. We're going to go ahead and change the motor direction here. We're going to use the wizard. Once we select the wizard, it will go ahead and pop up, and with the props off, the props will go ahead and start to all spin. The motors will all start to spin up, and then you can feel each motor and just click on the motor that you want to change direction. Just with the wizard, it makes it really easy. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and remap the motors because of the way we had to rotate the ESC. And now with the Betaflight 4.30 wizards, it's very simple now, way easier than it used to be to remap motors. Go ahead and make sure you say understand the risk. You got the props off. Go ahead and click start. Once you click start, Betaflight will start to spin one motor, and it will ask you which motor is spinning, and then you just click on the motor that's spinning when Betaflight spins up each motor, and it will know exactly how to remap it that easy. And that's it, guys. We're ready for the maiden flight in the next video. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to be flying the maiden flight at a really awesome parking garage spot. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Till next time, Edrone out.